You think you're a big man, huh? You think you're the cat's pajamas?
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Beau and Andrew didn't go to college because that's the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast.
Welcome to Get Dumped On, an Infodump podcast. This is a podcast where four of us get together and we learn things and we make jokes about stuff and we really have a good time. So if you like to learn and you like to listen, get buckled in. I am Ash. Today we're going to be hosted by Andrew. We're going to do one of our upper deckers. Andrew, do you want to take us away and tell us what you're going to be doing today? Oh, also,
open your mouth, bitches. Oh, sorry.
Oh, gee.
Also, Zach and Beau
so hot
are
on this one.
Also, Zach and Beau are here, so we're excited to learn today.
Hi, I'm Zach, and that's Beau.
Zach's a bitch.
Oh, come on.
There's still a lot of leftover tension from the last two episodes from between those two, so I hope it continues because I love it when you guys yell at each other.
We're like in our stank era right now.
I love it. It's great.
For what it's worth, if anyone out there is listening is wondering if like me and if like we don't like each other, it's not true.
It's true. They fucking hate each other.
I'm only mean to Beau because I like him.
It's like in the schoolyard.
It's like a bully. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you pull someone's hair and you're like, haha, and they're like, stop bullying me, and you're like, I secretly love you.
Why are you so stupid? And blah, 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 blah. And then you go home and you're like, why don't they like me?
Listen, I never matured past third grade, okay?
Shows.
That's okay.
That bodes well for me because we're married. And that's also not true. You're extremely emotionally mature most of the time, I think.
Oh, thanks.
Anyway.
Yeah, welcome to another Upper Decker. Just as I started the other Upper Decker, open your mouth, bitches. You're about to get dumped on. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the upper deck, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to catchphrase or trademark all those phrases because I think they're fantastic.
I love it.
Today we're talking about professional wrestling. Professional wrestling is so stupid, and I love it so much. However, it has changed a lot over time. And I knew a lot of this stuff that I'm going to be dumping on you guys, but I also learned a lot while researching this. I didn't know a lot of this stuff, so I'm excited for you guys.
That's the secret hidden gem, and that's the reason this podcast exists, is when you start digging deeper and you learn all the little details, and it's so juicy, and you just learn all the little bits. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a really fun time.
I just like the other episodes, it's like I know a little bit about this topic just from, being a human being who exists in the world, but I definitely have no real depth to my knowledge about wrestling, even though, we went to that one independent wrestling night at the bar downtown, and we watched a couple of wrestling matches. But like my only knowledge of wrestling is what I picked up from playing like the NWO N64 games and then like the Legends of Wrestling game on the GameCube. And so basically everything I know about wrestling I know from video games, and that one time that Mankind was on the cover of Nintendo Power.
Love it. I love Mankind so much. I actually have a signed Cactus Jack t-shirt from him that I'm going to put in a shadow box. It's literally sitting right next to me in my basement.
It's giving you the good mojo.
Do you want to hear what I know about professional wrestling?
Hell yeah. What do you got?
Basically nothing. As I said, we went to one independent show. I'm gonna tell you everything I know. Okay, we went to the one show. It was great. It's a real good time. Every time I watch wrestling, it's fun. Triple H, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Rock.
Goldberg.
And then the one where they all fight and there's a ladder and they're trying to get to a briefcase.
You know a lot more than you think.
That was a good time when we watched that. And
but what about you? Or sorry, keep going.
That's about it. No, that's about it. I know some like recent ones because our brother-in-law watches wrestling and he's showed us a lot, and it's cool. But I don't necessarily remember any of them right now.
Your brother-in-law sounds like a super cool person, and I want to watch wrestling with them.
Oh yeah, you'd have a really good time. He's super cool.
So, Beau, what do you know about wrestling? I know you know some because you and I have talked a little bit about it.
Yeah,
before.
My wrestling knowledge probably stops. I want to say, watched it as a kid growing up, but it stopped. What stops at probably 2005, 2006 when I finally stopped watching wrestling. Wrestling was my.
That's how most people were.
Wrestling was my life. So probably going to my freshman or my sophomore year of high school is when I stopped watching wrestling.
Yeah. Most people did that. They watched it as a kid because it was hugely popular, especially when we were growing up.
It was
that was like the golden age of just like
absolute nut house, shit house, crazy wrestling.
Yeah, it was like on all the time. Like I remember the visuals. Triple H would drink the water and then like spit it out or whatever. That's pretty like burned into my memory.
Oh yeah.
We used to get free pay-per-views because my uncle stole cable. I
really don't want to ask if that's a Mexican joke, but
no, it was actually my white uncle, so we can go ahead and pass
oh wow, look at that, breaking stereotypes. Good job.
Look at that. And we always watched every pay-per-view at their house because it was free.
That's amazing. Well, so I'm going to dump on you guys a little bit, and this really is not going to cover any of what you guys just talked about.
Then I'm not interested no more.
Okay, get out of here.
Bye.
I'm more interested.
You got the day
now.
off. This has to do with the actual where it came from and how it got started.
So like the Greeks.
So I kind of had a conundrum within myself. Also, I really apologize if I sound kind of sicky. I went golfing and my allergies are wrecking me right now. So if you hear some sniffles, I apologize.
Oh, I went golfing. I'm a golfing boy.
Yeah. I went with Daddy down to the clubhouse. And
Andrew, you should dump on us about golf sometime.
I honestly don't know that much about golf. I play it. I never fucking watch it. It's so boring.
Vibes.
But I love playing it. It's so fun to play it. But yeah, so I had a conundrum about what I wanted to do with this episode because there's so many ways that I could have gone. I really wanted to go the way of telling you guys professional wrestling stories, as in if the characters were real themselves. I started writing that and I went down a rabbit hole that was so hard. That would have been like a 4-hour long episode. Because all of these guys, think about it. Triple H started in like the 80s and he was a British quote, retired. He has been going for 40 years. That's how long these characters have been going. The Undertaker went for 40 years. His entire story arc started 40 years ago. And it's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to compress. Zach,
That's
Beau,
wild.
did you just say that he was British? That Triple H is British?
Triple H started as a British man.
Well, he started as he wasn't British.
Is he still a British man?
It wasn't. No, he didn't. He started as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and he was from Connecticut. He was a rich boy
Who had a British accent.
He did not. I don't remember that.
Oh, you don't remember that? So. Oh, he did. Look it up.
I'll look it up later. But as of right now, let's get this started. So we're like 10 minutes in. I get to start talking. So, Zach, you did say ancient Greece. Technically, yes, they did wrestling, but that's not wrestling. That's wrestling. Wrestling isn't
Lucha
wrestling.
Libre.
Wrestling isn't wrestling. Wrestling is everything but wrestling. So, yes, 3,000 years ago, or 3,000 BCE. That's when ancient Greece started. So, a question for you: when do you think that wrestling actually started as a quote performance art?
Yesterday.
No.
My guess is Mexico with Lucha Libre.
Okay. What year?
Do you have options, or is it just I have to choose?
It was a while ago. Let me tell you that.
20s.
So it wasn't yesterday, damn.
I would say 1800s. 1800s.
Where in the 1800s? Give me a little more.
Oh, 1860.
Oh.
I'm going to say that our modern perception of wrestling started in 1922 in Cleveland.
That's so specific. I love it.
I think it started in Mexico in 1860.
I think it started in Mexico in 1861.
Well, so the tradition of combining wrestling and showmanship, it kind of has like the word of mouth sort of stuff, no official word of it. It originated in the early 1800s in Western Europe when showmen presented wrestlers under like fake names, and they would attempt to get people to pay them money to try and knock them down. And this is in the early 1800s.
Like friggin' American Gladiator?
Kind of, yeah. They would parade somebody like, hey, here's it. So I actually wrote down some of the names. Here's Edward the Steel Eater, and you can knock him down, and then you can get some money, or you have to pay us a bunch of shekels or whatever.
I love that so much.
You would definitely try, Zach. You would definitely try.
Oh yeah,
100% I would.
So there's no official word on that one, but the actual official word on it, at least in the United States, is 1848. It was.
Oh, I was close.
Nice. I've never been happier to be completely wrong.
I know, right? It was mainly on the carnival circuit and used as an act to spice up limited action in between bodybuilder strongman attractions.
Hey, watch these big dudes fight. Hey.
Exactly. The strongmen would be, they would have the hammer and they would be like, yeah, but in between them getting the hammer ready, they had to do something. So they would challenge local, quote, and I this is in an article, quoted, local dumb oafs to step up and face real professional wrestlers. And just as carnies were known for taking people to the cleaners with their rigged games, promoters did the same with these guys.
That's great. That's wonderful.
One of the earliest stars, it says he was a Cornish-American ex-miner named Jack Carkeek, who would challenge audience members to last at least 10 minutes with him.
10 minutes?
And most of them could not.
Like in a fight?
It's a wrestling match. So essentially they would either try to hold them down and pin them. That was how you would beat them. If you hold them down and pin them for 3 seconds.
I would lose immediately in negative 3 seconds.
It says Cornish American. I don't know what that means.
It means that he worships the chaos god of combat and blood, the god of skulls, Corn.
I don't know if you're lying to me or not, but also, again, professional wrestling.
That sounds like something out of Warhammer.
It's a Warhammer reference.
So that's where that cinematic masterpiece Spider-Man 1 got the inspiration with
Cornish.
You got
Cornish
me for 3 minutes.
Essentially, yes, exactly. That's exactly what it was. He was trying to get some money.
I just want everybody to know that Cornish is relating to the people of Cornwall. It's like an English thing, like the Cornish hens. They're from England.
Okay.
Cornish people.
Yeah, I didn't know that, so that's cool.
I think there's like
also
a
from
Celtic,
England because Games Workshop is an English company. They're from Nottingham.
Well, there you go.
There we go. So a wrestler would commonly wrap up quickly in a wrestling hold and pin someone to the mat as fast as possible for victory. Most of the time, they would have the professional wrestler fight a bunch of people to make him look winded before inviting a fan to give it a shot.
Oh, classic.
Those people the wrestler would fight before the fan would become to known as jobbers. So in the previous podcast where I gave you guys two dump and a chump about hockey stuff, Zach noticed that jobber was a wrestling term, and you said jabroni is also a derivative or whatever from jobbers, which is 100% true. That is exactly where it came from, and jabroni to this day is a wrestling term for the guy who gets beat up by the other guy to make him look good.
You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
I love using that. I use that word every day of my life.
I
too.
say jabroni all the time. Like all the time. I did not know that that's where it came from.
Hey, Beau. Hey, Beau.
I love it.
Hey, Beau, you fucking jabroni.
That's why I wasn't answering you. You said, hey, Beau.
Look at these jabronis.
He knew it was coming. These
friggin' jabroskis.
The broskies. So a common carnival thing in this era would be to mark people who are spending a bunch of money on rigged games with some chalk. So they would come up behind them and they know it's like, hey, this dude is spending a bunch of money on these rigged ass games. I'm going to take some chalk and like mark the
target.
Essentially, yeah, like on their back shoulder.
Yeah,
or on their hat.
The ultimate chumps mark. Getting marked because you're a friggin' fool with a lot of money.
Is that why they call people easy marks?
So this translates over to the pro wrestling, as promoters would put chalk marks on people in the crowd who were mostly unruly and would claim they could beat the wrestler in a fight. They became known as marks.
Oh my God.
This term is still used to this day for fans of professional wrestling, as in someone that believes what's happening in wrestling is actually real, or when a fan loses their minds over a segment, either good or bad, it's called marking out. So professional wrestlers still refer to fans as marks.
Oh my God, the puzzle pieces are falling into place. Everything's making sense now. It's like I can see the Matrix.
That's
pretty cool. I love that. I love that they would be like somebody walking around with a piece of chalk on their finger, like a little bit of chalk on their finger, and just touch somebody and be like, hey,
excuse me. Sorry.
Let's take this fucker's money.
Hey, this one right here. This guy.
This guy's a chump.
This local dumbo. So champions of this era included, I love these names. They're all great. Martin Farmer Burns, Evan Strangler Lewis, Paul how do you say the colossal in French? Le Colosse?
Sure.
You're exactly the French guy.
Can you send it written down?
Listen, I'm not going to do any better of a job. What I'm going to do is something that sounds more...
Zach?
Fucking French girl.
You're the French expert? You have to tell us.
Okay.
We told people there's no French.
You're the only one.
Give me the word. Show it to me in text, and I'll do it.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm a pass anyway. The Great Gamma and Terrible Turk Yusuf Ishmael, where this was a note in one of the articles I was reading about the Terrible Turk Yusuf Ishmael. Apparently, they nearly drowned to death after falling overboard on the SS La Bourgogne, dragged underwater by his heavy championship belt.
I love that.
Oh,
I couldn't find anything else on this. I really wanted to, but this was just a little thing that was on here, and I was like, no fucking way. Why are there no references to this anywhere? I need to find more.
So he died a champion.
He didn't die. He almost died.
Oh, well, now I'm out of the story again.
Well, he's a double champion.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Ooh.
Champion of life and champion of the sea because he beat the sea.
I thought he died,
Yeah.
With his
died,
championship
got
belt.
reciprocated, and was brought back to life. That's how I was thinking double champion. He died with the belt. He lived with the belt.
And then he died, and then he knocked out. He pinned the devil and came back to life.
He pinned Poseidon. He was like, "Fuck you, give me your fish." I don't know.
And then he emerged stronger than ever.
Fuck you, give me your fish. Is what
Give me your
he told
fish.
Poseidon. Hey, Poseidon, why don't you give me your fish? Get your bro.
And Poseidon's like, I have a trident. You just want the fish? Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, fish. Go,
Give
go,
me the
go.
fish, bro. So an interesting part of this story that I noticed too when reading about all this stuff is that this was not only taking place in North America, but at the same time in, let's say, the early 1900s. So this started officially, at least people could trace it back to, it was around 1848. So just the end of the 1800s. At the beginning of the 1900s, this was happening at the same time in Mexico and Russia. And all of these plays started around the same time, but they all varied in styles. And it's really cool to read about all this stuff. America was very much about being the strongest guy ever. I'm the strongman competition, like with the twirly mustache and the weird overalls, like they are swindling people for money. Mexican wrestling dates back to actually a little bit before, a little bit after this. Yeah, it was 1863. So during the French Revolution in Mexico, a guy named Enrique, I'm going to fuck this up, Enrique
Iglesias.
Huertaca, I don't know, I can't read this. The first Mexican wrestler developed and invented Mexican lucha libre from Greco-Roman wrestling. And lucha libre was and still is about high-flying stunts and death-defying stuff. But there were still strongmen involved back in the day as well.
I mean, you got to be strong to do all that stuff, like.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Lucha
you
Libre
really
is
do.
the coolest. Oh, it's so cool.
Remember when we watched a lot of Lucha Libre a couple years ago, Zach?
Yeah, I was about to go to Peru for the summer, and you were about to go to Spain for the summer, and so we decided that we would try to learn better Spanish by watching Lucha Libre in Spanish and see how much of it we could understand. And we ended up watching like 2 or 3 hours of Lucha Libre.
All of your Spanish is just wrestling moves.
Yeah, I ended up getting nothing. I got nothing from it, but I had a great time.
I can at least count to 3.
I remember the esqueleto. That was about it.
Which sounds very much like the English word.
The spooky skeleton.
Oh, not in terms of like understanding Spanish, just in what I remember of the stories and the characters.
But it's cool to think about because...
Oh, it was the hungry skeleton. That was it, right?
The hungry what?
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean? Was that a guy?
Yeah, that was like his wrestling name.
Oh, fuck yeah. I love that person. I don't even know who they look like, what they look like, and I love them. So yeah, this is around 1863. So this is around the same time that it was getting popular in the US. This dude just was like, I'm just going to make my own wrestling style, and did the same thing. It was a stage show. They would, challenge locals, but they would also fight each other. Granted, they were doing their own version of it. And I honestly don't know if they knew that the other people were doing it. They may have. It would make sense if they were, but there's no record that at least I could find that they were, doing it because the other guys were doing it. And they definitely didn't, do it together, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Russia, it was more about the spectacle and the crowd participation. It was more about being an actual stage show. So Russian promoters were among the first to develop characters for the wrestlers like beasts and noble beauties, is what this one said. In the competitions, they had stage performances which played on human feeling. So they said they were trying to touch the heart of the then viewer.
They were developing the storylines.
They were.
Mm-hmm.
They were arousing interest, and they resorted to starting arguments in front of audiences, threatening each other with violence. They hid it's called a cheek swim bladder in their mouth with red paint inside, and gave the illusion of bleeding whenever they would fight each other. They were really creating a spectacle with over-the-top characters.
That's wonderful.
It's really fantastic stuff.
I don't have any confirmation of this, but as an avid watcher of wrestling my entire life, I can only assume this was the birthplace of the current style of wrestling, because that's what happens today. It's all about the gimmick. It's all about the pageantry, the showcase of the entire show itself. It has nothing to do with wrestling. It has everything to do with everything else, which that sounds a lot like what's happening today.
But do they still use swim bladders full of... Wait, was it fake blood or was it real blood?
It was paint. So
Oh, okay.
I know that like things have changed. So obviously they don't do that anymore. And if they try to avoid being cut open altogether if they can, but who knows?
It's not good for network TV to have blood, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They would lose their they lose their rating.
I could see a bunch of Russian wrestlers in the 19th century using like pig's blood or something instead of fake blood.
They may have. You never know. So yeah, they had the Mexican one was going on, Lucha Libre. They had the Russian one that was going on with the Spectacle, and then they had the U.S. going all at the same time. Again, I don't know if they knew that the other guys were going on. I honestly don't care. I think that's great that all of them were developing their own styles and doing the same thing, which is fantastic. So right now, though, I have the first 2 dumps into chump for you.
Let's go.
Let's go.
This has to do with championship titles, specifically belts.
Okay.
Which of these titles was officially recognized as professional wrestling's first championship belt? A, World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. B, American Heavyweight Champion. Or C, World Greco-Roman Heavyweight Champion.
I think it's the World Greco-Roman Heavyweight Champion.
I think it's A
I think it's
because of the strongman roots.
I like to be different from both you, so I'm going B.
B for Beau.
Okay.
Yeah,
A for Beau.
That's the
And A for
logical.
and A for Ash. And Zach has a C in it. Boom, we're good. All right, Andrew,
Yeah, boom,
hit
let's
us.
go.
But so does
Who was right?
Oh my God. Who was right? Beau, you're going to be very upset. It was Zach. Zach is correct.
Ah,
So the first wrestling title belt was created in 1887 by a man named William Muldoon, who was the first World Greco-Roman Wrestling Champion. The belt was made of black leather and had a gold plate in the center with the words World Greco-Roman Wrestling Champion engraved on it. Those other 2 were championship belts, and one of them actually still is, but the Greco-Roman one is the first ever, at least in professional wrestling.
What font did they use?
Comic Sans.
Nice.
That's the only font that I know. So the World Heavyweight Wrestling
Dude, you gotta learn more
Championship.
fonts. There's a lot of really good fonts out there. There's, Garamond.
Papyrus?
Oh, fuck you. Get the fuck out of here.
You just say no. You get out of here.
I think it's funny that you know papyrus and not like Times New Roman or Arial.
I watched a lot of Parks and Rec, and that's the only. I remember he was like, "No papyrus."
Calibri. GT
Okay,
America.
this isn't time for this, Zach.
no. We got
You
we got
saved it
time.
for your dump.
Wait, we got
This is enough with
Agency
Decker.
FB.
We got time.
Hey, listeners, comment if I mentioned your favorite font. Book Antiqua.
Wingdings.
Futura. Roboto.
Sorry, I got though.
I think I'm running out. Okay,
Good.
let's get... all right, I'm grinding the podcast to a halt. Let's continue.
So this guy, William Muldoon's belt was the first of its kind for professional wrestling, and it was not the first belt given for a championship, though. The first belt ever given as a prize for championship stuff was in 1810 by King George III to a bare-knuckle boxer. So over the next few decades, wrestling kind of adopted that as well, and they started creating their own belts for pretty much every organization that started up, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, the World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship is one of the first that was ever created, and technically still is in rotation today in the WWE as World Heavyweight Champion. So that's a long storied history all the way back to the early 1900s, which I think is pretty crazy.
That's pretty neat.
Pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Wrestling's popularity experienced a dramatic tailspin from 1915 to 1920. Apparently, the American public started to have doubt of its legitimacy and status as an actual competitive sport, which makes sense, you know.
Wow, so they clocked it. It was clocked very early on, huh?
It was.
Hey,
yeah, it
these
was.
guys are taking all our money.
Yeah, it was mainly like, hey, these fuckers are taking our money. What the hell? Now I don't like them anymore.
Ridiculous.
So wrestlers during the time were counted as largely faked, but in response, 3 professional wrestlers by the names of Ed Lewis, Billy Sandow, and one of the best names I've ever heard right here, Toots Montt. They joined their own. They formed their own promotion in the 1920s, and they modified their in-ring product to attract fans. So they went from moving traveling carnivals to actual venues and burlesque theaters.
Beau comes in when burlesque gets mentioned.
They were the first to use time limit matches, quote, quote, flashy new wrestling moves and signature maneuvers that they use today as well. They popularized tag team wrestling with new tactics such as distracting the referee and just shit like that to make matches more exciting. And rather than paying traveling wrestlers to perform on certain dates and combining wrestlers and matchups they were available, they decided to sign wrestlers and keep them for months and years at a time to allow long-term angles and feuds to develop. So these three, they made a shitload of money doing this because they actually had a show where, you know, all the wrestlers would come every single night and there were storylines for the audience to get all wrapped up in. They made a shitload of money, apparently.
So it's a violent theater.
Essentially, yeah. So they essentially have taken that Russian way and made it their own with the cool wrestling moves that they were doing, flashed them up a little bit with some cool dumb rules, you know, distracting the referee, you know, using violence and signature moves, and built these guys up to where now it was an actual stage show, not at a carnival, but in a real theater.
So what you're saying is that all professional wrestlers are just theater kids.
100%.
On steroids.
Not even a question.
On steroids.
On steroids.
That's I really love that about professional wrestling moving, like, as in like kind of now. If you see most of these professional wrestlers online, every single one of them is a fucking nerd. They all play video games. They all like read books and shit. Every one of their wrestling moves is named after like some video game character or an anime thing. It's all a bunch of fucking nerds, dude.
Yeah, I mean, they name their special moves. How is that not like a gigantic weeb thing to do?
Dude, CM Punk, one of the biggest wrestlers in the world, comes out, looks every single time he comes out, you know, for a match, he comes out, he gets on one knee, he looks at his fake watch on his wrist and yells, "It's clobbering time" from the Fantastic Four.
He's also very preachy about being straight edge, but that's neither here nor there.
But yeah, every wrestler's a fucking nerd, dude. There's almost every wrestler that I know of has a Twitch channel. They just stream video games all the time. There's one wrestler too, is my favorite in the world, Kenny Omega. His wrestling finisher is named the One-Winged Angel, which I assume it's a reference to something video game wise, but I actually don't know what that is.
Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth.
There you go. See, fucking nerd. You know the shit. So yeah, you are correct.
Honestly, I'm surprised that you didn't know that. That's like, I've never even played Final Fantasy VII, and I know that Sephiroth is the One-Winged Angel.
I knew that for Smash Bros. Because his theme song and the thing is called One-Winged Angel.
There you
also,
go.
Zach,
yes.
We did know that. We were told that before.
I mean, Andrew probably told us that.
Did I?
I think that
It's
Chris
entirely
did.
possible that you did. Yeah, either you or Chris.
I actually told you that right now.
It's Beau. He told you.
Oh my God, it was
bleeping
Beau,
out
actually.
other people's names on the podcast. Chris, if you listen to this and want us to bleep out your name, let me know.
Or give us
After the fact.
Or give us your permission to say your first, last name, and your social security card. Let us know.
Chris Christopherson.
What a name. That's his wrestling name.
All right, back to wrestling.
Remember when he was in Blade?
these guys, Louis Sandow and again, best name ever, Tootsmont, they were looking to promote wrestling's new style on a much greater scale. As the interest grew, they moved from burlesque theaters to actual major sports venues. And due to the amount of money coming in, they were able to recruit hundreds of people to join their traveling wrestling, no longer circus, but sort of still circus. So they had a full-on crew to do wrestling, and they would travel around and just mop the fucking floor with how much goddamn money they were making. They're so popular. It was really
there you
cool.
go. Can you remind me what year this is?
This was in 1920.
Roaring 20s. There's money to be made.
How close to Cincinnati was it?
I assume everywhere, like around the United States, or at least I know it took place a lot on the eastern coast, but also like in the middle too, because they would travel around as much as they could.
Earlier, did I say Cleveland or Cincinnati? Somebody rolled the tape.
You said Cleveland, now you're switching to Cincinnati. You have Ohio on the brain right now, sir.
Hey,
Shout out to all of our friends in Ohio who listen to the podcast.
Cleveland rocks.
All two of them.
Cleveland rocks.
Yeah, Cleveland rock. What's his face is there? Drew Carey.
Drew Carey left a long time ago.
Everyone from Ohio leaves. Ohio produced more astronauts than any other state because people from Ohio can't wait to fucking leave Ohio.
So they go to
They
space.
want to get as far away as possible.
So they go to the moon.
Yeah.
There's no train crashes on the moon. So back to where was I? So yeah, they convinced hundreds of wrestlers to join them on their crew, I guess. And they signed exclusive contracts, which meant you can only wrestle with us, which was a kind of a radical move at the time. No one ever had done that before. It says here that they subsequently decimated the talent pool for rival booking agents. So they had essentially a monopoly for a really fucking long time. It says here, as the central agency for touring wrestlers, the trio thus established themselves as the industry's first nationwide promotion. They gained credibility by paying the wrestlers on time, which was apparently uncommon for the era. Moreover, they came up with the idea of presenting pro wrestling as a packaged product. They were the first to book ongoing storylines while promoting the same bouts as the circuit traveled from city to city. And within a year, all three of these guys, they called them the Gold Dust Trio because of how much money they made. They took complete control over the wrestling industry, which is absolutely crazy.
Well, it seemed like the wrestling industry wasn't in a great state before they came around and...
It's true. It seems like they
were
making storylines, cleaning up everybody. They kind of they were like, hey, everyone, I know that the Carney thing ain't gonna fly anymore. Come hang out with us instead.
Yeah, this is legitimate. We'll pay you on time. Like, we're very popular.
Yeah, I'll sign you for a year-long contract. Here's some money. Show up every night and wrestle these guys. And it worked. It worked really great. These guys were cleaning up. They're making money, and everybody seemed to be pretty happy. So Ed Lewis, one of the three, he actually held the world title throughout the 1920s. He was one of the wrestlers as well as one of the owners.
Oh my gosh, it was an employee-owned business. It
was. And the other two, they backed him essentially, and they would fight him all the time, and they made him a national superstar, made him look really good. So they jobbed for him all the time.
They were his jabronis.
They were his jabronis. They were his jobbers. And they made him a huge star. I did read, though, that the trio recognized that fans would eventually grow tired of one man dominating the belt. So Lewis agreed to occasionally, quote, quote, put over a popular challenger to generate renewed interest. So they would have, if somebody was popular in a certain area of the state or a certain, area of the country, they would have Lewis lose to him and give that person the belt there. And then Lewis would win it back somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they would, it's kind of like what they do with wrestling now. It's, if you're the hometown crew, you're somehow stronger when you're at home, whatever that is. Hometown advantage. Or
your fans. It's the
field
fans.
Advantage. The fans give you the energy. Yada, yada, yada.
The marks.
Exactly. So this began the practice of, quote, quote, working a match, where you build up a specific wrestler as a suitable contender using jobbers to do so. And they created a hierarchy for their talent. And so inferior wrestlers who possessed a charisma were often pushed as challengers who that were attracted to specific fan bases or regions, and they would let them win there, but then they make them lose everywhere else. So it was kind of cool to that, how they played into that.
Is it kind of like the Wharf effect? How every time they wanted to introduce them, every time you want to introduce a new big bad, you show them beat up the strongest guy, and then over time it just kind of ends up making the strongest guy look like a kind of a bitch because
they made him job to him.
Hotness.
Yep, they made him the jabroni. Apparently, too, the other two guys, not Lewis, but the other two guys, Sandow and Mont, they were known as hookers. I guess it has to do with if you're really good at putting people in submission maneuvers, they call themselves hookers because they would hook you. And
I want you to guys from right now as a hooker for the rest of the podcast, please.
So they would act as the cops, essentially. Whenever someone in the crowd would say that the shit was fake, they would invite them into the ring and just stretch the shit out of them. They would put them in a headlock. They would put them in some crazy chicken wing thing, and the person in the ring would be like, okay, let me go.
You think this is fake, motherfucker?
That's essentially what it was. That was how they kept it legitimate. They'd be
you
like,
think
get
you're
in
a
the
big
ring.
man, huh?
I'm going to show you how this is
slang.
done. Exactly. So they were the quote, quote, cops of the time as well. So
you think
anyone
the cat's
who questioned
pajamas?
Exactly, anyone who questioned the legitimacy of the sport got a good stretching, which I absolutely love.
Did they call it? They call it stretching.
So that's an actual term. Is stretching. A stretch is putting someone in a submission maneuver.
Oh, okay. Is it like stretching them over the rack? Where did that come from?
I don't know where that came from. There's a lot of terms in wrestling, and that actually leads us into my next two dumps in a chump. Professional wrestling terms, my friend.
Bow. Let's go.
I want to know.
Which one of these is false? Two are true. One is not. Number 1, pop. Number 2, tweener. Number 3, sweater.
The first one was pop. P-O.
Pop. P-O-P.
One's true, and the rest are false, or?
One is false. The rest are true.
Oh.
Okay, sidebar. Sidebar.
All right, hit me.
Pop is 1.
Pop is true.
Yeah.
I'm going to pop you.
No, it's like a pop. Pop is like something exciting happens like in the middle and you hear a pop go off. Makes more exciting.
Okay.
It turns the crowd to something else. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll be honest here. I've forgotten the other two.
The next one was tweener. And then the last one?
And sweater.
Sweater.
Oh, and a sweater is like a sweaty, like someone who's sweaty.
Like someone who's really sweaty, so he's hard to grab.
So he's like the grease up that guy from Family Guy. Oh, gotta catch me. He's so sweaty.
A tweener, like a young guy?
A teenage wrestler.
Like a teenager?
or
like
is
when
it like
Spider-Man goes wrestling?
Or is it like an in-betweener? like when they talk about tweening in animation and doing the in-between frames.
Oh, in between frames. I want the sweater to be true. And I want it to be exactly what we said it was. So I'm going to say that tweener is not true.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'll go down with that.
Okay. Beau, you were correct. A pop is 100% a wrestling term. A pop is a term when the crowd instantly loses their mind and cheers as loud as humanly possible, like when a favorite wrestler's music hits suddenly.
Gotcha.
That's
Hell
a pop.
Yeah, I just
That's what wrestlers really love talking about that. Like when Stone Cold Steve Austin, his song started with a... That's John Cena.
That's John Cena.
Okay, well, I didn't mean that was... I just meant that was a pop,
essentially,
right?
yeah. Like whenever... If it's not expected and their music hits and everyone loses their minds, they call it a pop.
Like there's a guy in the ring like ranting, I'm the best, no one can defeat me, and then you hear... Yeah.
Like when the main character's theme starts playing during a fight in an anime series.
Exactly. And the crowd goes fucking wild. That's pop. The next one, sweater. It's just a sweater. That's false. It's just, I just made that up. But tweener is true. So a tweener, Zach, you're on the right track. Not a good guy, not a bad guy, just in between. Sometimes if he's fighting a good guy, he gets booed. Sometimes if he's fighting a bad guy, he gets cheered.
He's just your stand-in.
But he's
up.
He's not good. He's not bad. He's just there.
So Kurt Angle.
It's not essentially a bad thing. Yeah, kind of like Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was people love to laugh at him and they love to hate him. He was just kind of in between there. And you hated him or you loved him. There was no definite, I'm a good guy or I'm a bad guy. But some other wrestling terms, obviously, jobber, we talked about it. It's a wrestler who routinely loses in order to build the credibility of other wrestlers. The Rock was actually the one who popularized it in pop culture. However, The Rock was asked about it during an Esquire interview, and I quote, said, "When I was a kid, it was an inside term that the guys would use. When wrestlers wanted to have a private conversation when fans were present, they would start talking carny because they used to wrestle in carnivals. I thought it was so cool. Jabroni was a word that was always used in the derogatory sense. Oh, this jabroni, that jabroni. But the Iron Sheik was famous for saying it constantly backstage. Jabroni, jabroni, jabroni. Around 1998, I thought, why can't I say it on TV? So I started saying it publicly, but the Iron Sheik was known for it.
The best thing is the Iron Sheik still tweets at people calling him jabronis.
Oh, yeah. The Iron Sheik is still on Twitter, and every single one of his tweets is like calling people jabronis, and he ends all of his tweets with also fuck Hulk Hogan because they had a huge rivalry.
I was thinking this earlier. How many youngins today don't know that The Rock was a professional wrestler? Because now he's like an actor.
I'm curious about that too, because I did talk to someone who recently what did they say? They said like something along the lines of, I heard he was a professional wrestler, but I didn't really know anything. And I kind of gave him the backstory. I was like, yeah, like he was there for a long time.
Can you smile?
Oh, The Rock was he was my favorite character ever. I love The Rock so much.
I hated The Rock so fucking
One
much.
of my greatest fears is that one day I'll have to cast a vote against The Rock for president.
Yeah, that's a whole other
Yeah.
story I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
So more terms. We have, there's a term called kayfabe, which a lot of people who don't watch wrestling all the time don't really know. Do you guys know what kayfabe is?
I do know the word kayfabe.
What is it, Zach?
Kayfabe is the what's the best way to describe it? It's kind of like the storyline of wrestling. It's like the kayfabe of it all is like the meta aspect of it, like
It's the real part of it, isn't it?
performative.
So it's the presentation of professional wrestling as being entirely legitimate or unscripted.
Yeah.
It says prior to the 1980s, the mid 1980s, this was universally maintained across all wrestling territories and promotions. To give you an example of kayfabe, there was a wrestler named Pat Patterson who was actually the first openly gay wrestler, which is another great story, but I'm not going to go into that. He said, and I quote, "I remember the guy who would bring us our jackets back to the dressing room. Every time he did, someone would yell kayfabe. So everyone in the room would go into their wrestling personas. Then one night, the guy decided to stand up for himself and told the whole dressing room, I don't mind the yelling, but I want to let you know my name is not kayfabe, it's Mark." Which he didn't know that wrestlers called people outside of the business marks, and that's why we're yelling kayfabe in the first place. So it's the act of being the professional wrestler and living the professional wrestler. So kayfabe it happens in kayfabe, which is so weird. I don't even know where I tried to look up where the term comes from, like the actual word itself. No idea. I couldn't find anything.
It's just one of those words whose origin has been lost to time.
Kind of. Seems
So
like
it's like when Disney performers, when they're like, oh, the Andy's
Yes.
toys. It's like, Andy's coming. I'd be in
Yeah.
character.
You see Gaston in Disneyland, and he's always in character. That's kayfabe for him.
So the toys in Toy Story are doing kayfabe all the time.
100%. They're all wrestlers. Two more for you. A bad guy is known as a heel, and a good guy is known as a face. Don't know why.
The face and the heel.
I love it.
Because the face, and then you turn him away, and then you see his heels. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I know that face comes from baby face.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, you're all right.
And heel is just a really old term.
Or turn heel.
And heel is just a really it's a really old term for
it's a turn
bad guy.
heel. So yeah, they kind of took it from those. You were right. I forgot about those. So thank you for reminding.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Beau, and only Beau.
You heard it.
So
Thank you,
this around the 1920s.
I'm older than you, Beau.
Are you? That's still up for debate.
I was here first.
Oh my god! So around the 1920s,
you win because you're older.
I want to fight both of you.
Yeah, well, you'd lose because you're the oldest one here.
Yeah, you fucking old man. How's your back?
In kayfabe, I am stronger than both of you.
No.
Yeah.
So around the 1920s, a new style was introduced to British wrestling.
Oh no!
So
Sex through the heel.
there was a great demand. I'm just going to keep on going. I'm pulling ash right now. There's a great demand. It actually went over to Britain for a little bit, and they tried to take the style that these guys were doing with, distract referees and crazy storylines. The British tried to take it. However, apparently there was a great demand for wrestling like that, and there weren't enough wrestlers to go around. So a lot of promoters switched to violent styles with weapons and chair shots and stuff like that. From what I found, this is the first mention of anyone using chairs and weapons in the ring. So I think that was actually invented in Britain because I couldn't find anything else. Don't quote me on that, but it seems like it. And it got so bad with the wrestling being so violent that the London City Council banned professional wrestling in the 1930s.
Not banning using weapons, just ban the whole thing.
Just ban the
They
whole
were
thing.
running out of chairs.
Yeah, no one could sit down.
There's nowhere to sit in it.
Where we go drink our tea?
Anyone with a bloody head.
So yeah, I think that's absolutely
have
hilarious.
been broken over the backs of those dumb oafs, and we've got nowhere to sit and drink our tea.
That was so good. That was so good.
Yeah, I think that's the best accent I've done on this show so far. I
That
told
was
myself
great. Yeah,
yesterday
I
when I
loved
was
it.
editing the last episode, I was like, I have to stop doing accents on this show. They never work. They never to go. It's always terrible. But you know what? That one was okay.
Yeah, pat yourself on the back. Pat yourself on the back a little bit.
Yeah,
It's still just going to be a special treat. Only sometimes. It's a sometimes food.
I was editing the last episode, the pirate episode, and I noticed every time I try to do a British accent, I do an Australian accent. I can't help it. I don't know why. But speaking of Australia, around the same time in the 1920s, 1930s, it got popular in Australia as well and was loved by the public because of the Great Depression. Fans sought relief in the entertainment and they loved it. It was great. So back to the
Everything
Americas.
sucks. Let's go watch two guys fight, eh?
These two Joeys about to punch each other.
Oh yeah. Do you have there been like people wrestling kangaroos on TV? Probably, right?
Probably. I
don't
can't
know.
say no, but I can't say yes. So probably.
Dude, I
Question mark?
I bet that getting kicked by a kangaroo would totally kill you.
Oh, fucking hurts so bad. Blech. Gross.
They got those
So-
claws.
The claws. So around the 1930s, the Gold Dust Trio actually ended up having a fallout. I couldn't find exactly what happened. It just sort of seemed like it was a business dispute, so they kind of broke up.
Money.
Probably. When they did, we started seeing professional wrestling promotions in regions pop up of the United States, Canada, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. So this goes into the territories era. So before it was kind of the Wild West, just wrestlers are everywhere. They're all carny pieces of shit, stealing money. And now they all got together and did something. It failed at some point eventually, and they all broke off and went to their homes and started making their own territory. So in let's see, so that was in 1930. So about 15 to 20 years later, a bunch of territories had started in in Canada, in Calgary. There was one in Seattle. There was one in Southern California. There was one in Hawaii. There was one in New York, Florida, North Carolina, Memphis. They're all over the United States. They had their own little territories, which they had their own little regional stars. It was adorable. It was so fun. So in 1948, all of the heads of the territories got together and created what was known as the NWA, or the National Wrestling Alliance, and they started looking after each other. So they kept their own territories. They didn't have to, merge together or anything, but they would send their top guys to other territories to start stirring up shit, which I think is such a good move. They did that's the perfect thing they could have done. Like, say you have, the champion from Hawaii would go to Memphis, stir up some shit, and then 3 months later, the guy from Memphis would come to Hawaii and stir up some shit. And that started creating more storylines, which was really cool. So what's also cool about this, every one of these promotions had their own championships, yet they all agreed that there should be one singular heavyweight champion. That
one belt to rule them all.
Exactly. It was the heavyweight belt to rule them all that they could pass around. And the best part about this, though, from a business perspective, television started coming out.
Ooh.
Oh.
TV was brand new. Everyone was like, "Ooh, this newfangled television shit's happening." Yeah, they hopped on that shit real quick. So not only could they watch their stars at home, they could watch their stars go perform in Memphis, in North Carolina, and Calgary, and watch them fight the local guys over there. But then you get to know the guys over there, so you start watching wrestling over and over and over and over, and it exploded in popularity. It was huge.
People like watching strong dudes fight,
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, there's something very basic about it, but
when
like in a good way.
we're at that amateur wrestling night that we went to, and it was just like a hot room and two shirtless dudes were just slapping the shit out of each other, and people were yelling garbage over and over and over again. I was like, okay, yeah, I totally get it. What's not to like?
It's so fun. I love it. Going to a wrestling event is pure fun just because you are part of the show. Everyone is part of the show.
And it's more fun
such a
when
good
you
experience.
lean into I forgot what the word you said was of it all.
Kayfabe.
Yeah.
The kayfabe. And it's like when we would go to baseball games, it was like, it's fun to like heckle the players at baseball games, but also you feel kind of rude. Like you feel like a bit of a dick. I mean, it's
Speak
not
for
going to
yourself.
stop you.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
But
You don't wanna
they're
be
like,
too
fuck
mean.
you,
You don't
Derek.
wanna be too mean.
Well, I
But
would
when
never
you're
say
like,
Andrew, I would never say that. So you watch your fucking mouth.
I don't know any other baseball players.
but when you're wrestling, when you're at a wrestling game, it's like, if you're not heckling, then you're not participating,
Yeah. You have to, be the guy who starts the chant, be the one who rouses the wrestler so much that they come at you and they yell at you. It's then they love that. If you ever get to the point where you yell at a wrestler and they yell back at you, they are having as much fun as you are.
Notice me,
100%.
senpai.
I'm
Pretty
done.
much, yeah.
Nope, I'm done. I don't know why he said that, and I'm done with him. I hate it. I hate it.
Whatever. You're a Yankees fan from California. I don't understand it.
Notice me, Jeter senpai.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm back in.
So now that TV was popular, the popularity skyrocketed. And from 1948 to the beginning of the 1980s, the territories ran everything with professional wrestling. It was a very long period of time that all of these territories were sending dudes back and forth. And it was so fun. Reading about these stories was really fun. And this is where the true OG, quote, quote, gods that dominated the sport came from, and their territories themselves. So, Zach, I know you've heard of Jerry the King Lawler.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Memphis. He was the Memphis, Tennessee king. He was the king of Memphis. That was his whole thing. Ric Flair came out of North Carolina. That's where he was from. Stu Hart, the father of Bret and Owen Hart, he was the Calgary guy. He
birthed a dynasty, apparently.
He birthed a dynasty. Hulk Hogan came out of Florida.
Straight from the
Andre
forehead.
the Giant. Yeah, Andre the Giant came out of Montreal, Minnesota, New York. He traveled around a little bit.
Well,
and Peter Maivia,
from France.
He's from France, but he wrestled in France a little bit. That was his
region.
But when they brought him over, he was mainly in Montreal, and then traveled around a lot. And Peter Maivia, he was the grandfather of The Rock, but also the biggest family in professional wrestling is from him. It's The Rock, Roman Reigns, Rikishi. Every guy who is Polynesian came from him. Even women too. There's like 4 or 5 wrestlers now who are all part of his family. That they're a wrestling dynasty.
He's the mitochondrial Eve of Polynesian wrestling.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, 100%. So that's really cool. I thought that was awesome because I didn't really know too much about this until recently. There's a show on Vice called Tales from the Territories, and it's all about these guys. And even the ones who are still alive, they sit them down at a table and they just say, go, tell me your craziest stories about what happened in all of these territories. So the one with Jerry the King Lawler is fascinating because that's when Andy Kaufman, the comedian, he started traveling out to Memphis in between shoots of his TV show in Hollywood to fuck with Jerry the King Lawler. He was a huge wrestling fan. And it was such a weird thing that happened, but it's such a cool story that happened too. So if you ever get a chance to, Tales from the Territories on Vice, some of the funniest, craziest stories you'll ever hear. 100%. Because this is also, it kind of came around again where people thought it was real again. So there was people pulling guns on people. There was knife fights. There was people waiting for people. Like
a big thing when we were kids, like the debate of is it real or is it not real? I feel like that idea even still persists today.
I don't know if it does today because kayfabe is kind of dead now. Just with the amount of the internet. With the internet, pretty much everything now if you just look something up. But back then, especially in the 80s, 70s. It kind of rounded the corner of is this real or fake again? Because they would still, hit fans and shit because fans would try to hit them. And, obviously these people are stronger than them. It would fucking hurt. So, yeah, watch that show if you ever get a chance. It's awesome. And that brings us to the modern era, quote, quote, of wrestling. So that the territories themselves, their heyday was again from 1948 to about early 1980s. This brings us to the early 1980s. So the McMahon family of the New York-based Worldwide Wrestling Federation, they took advantage of the boom in popularity. They started going to other territories and offering their top stars way more money than they were making in their territory to bail and come work for them, which worked, obviously. Which is
exactly what the Golden Trio did.
Mm-hmm.
They did, yeah.
Wrestlers are nothing if not mercenary.
Well, they are technically independent contractors. So, yeah, give me a bunch of money, come work for me. And a lot of them obliged, obviously. So the fans who watched them on TV started watching them over at the WWF.
Oh, it's easy for them to change the channel.
That's a lot of W's in that. So the WWF.
Yeah, so the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So this led to the WWF exploding in popularity. They ended up signing a deal with MTV. And then shortly after that, hosted the first ever WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. So with that being at one MSG,
WrestleMania,
the first ever WrestleMania, there was 90,000 people there. And with the deal with MTV, they were able to get stars there. Let's see, who was there?
I was there.
So Beau was there. So Hollywood stars like Mr. T wrestled in a match with Hulk Hogan. Cyndi Lauper was a manager of another wrestler. Muhammad Ali was a guest referee for a match, and Liberace was the guest timekeeper.
I'm going to need to know the wrestler that Cyndi Lauper was managing.
I don't know, actually. I need to look that up. But at the time, it became the most watched pay-per-view in history. Not in wrestling, not only in wrestling, ever, period. Across the board. They
Pay-per-view
killed it.
was just like boxing and stuff before?
I assume it was boxing, and that's the only thing I could think of, but probably. I don't know.
Well, your kids can
Actually.
watch it now.
This is where the story of the origin of pro wrestling, I would say, ends. This is it. Because once the McMahons took over, some of the other original promotions, they're actually still around today, but they're very small because most of the other ones were either bought or absorbed by the WWF or WWE, or depending on the timeline. But yeah, I would say that's the end of the origin story, at least, because after that, they became, essentially a monopoly of wrestling itself and took over. Then that leads into what we were talking about earlier in the, late 90s, early 2000s of Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and The Undertaker and Kurt Angle. There's really nothing else to tell story-wise about how they got there unless we go into their actual storylines themselves.
When I was a kid, I thought that Stone Cold Steve Austin and Cold Stone the restaurant had like stuff to do with each other. And then I went to one and I was like, oh, this doesn't have anything to do with Stone Cold Steve
There's
Austin.
no rattlesnades here.
There's no beer
Where's
flavored
the
ice
broken
cream.
glass?
Oh yeah, he would like crack beers on his head, right?
Oh yeah,
I remember
he
that.
has his own beer now. He sells it on the internet.
He
For
did
him.
a Got Milk ad, didn't he? Where he was doing the same thing.
Anyone who
I
is
think
anyone
that's
did
Kurt
a
Angle.
Got Milk ad.
But he may have done it too. I don't know. But yeah, so the story of pro wrestling itself, it's a wild ride from the carnivals of the late 1800s to Russia and the pageantry and Mexico with high flying styles. Japan in the 70s actually started their own one too. It's still around to this day. It's called New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's phenomenal. They adopted the quote, quote, strong style to where they were legitimately trying to convince people that they were fighting. And I think they still do that now because when I watch that, it's kind of hard to decipher like what wrestling moves are faked because those dudes beat the shit out of each other. And then Great Britain with its old-timey bare knuckle boxing roots and the violence of it all. So many places around the world have adopted their own styles. And now when you watch a pro wrestling, either would it be like WWE or AEW or New Japan Pro Wrestling, all the styles of the regions are now one. And it's pretty cool to see, a luchador fighting an old-timey strongman. It's awesome. It's great to watch.
I would like to see a pro wrestling character really lean into the carny strongman. Is there one that's like that?
There was a guy a couple of years ago who legitimately was the carny strongman. He had like the twirly mustache and the weird overall thing. I haven't seen one in a while, but they do show up.
I just think of the Big Show with his leotard.
That
Very
honestly,
old-timey.
like here's the biggest guy we found, and all he does is throw you. Like I would
that's
count
great.
that as a yeah.
Zach, that's your kind of deal,
And
right?
his leotard
Yeah,
looked
I
old
love
strong
it.
manny.
I love a large guy who throws people.
Just hug him out of the ring.
Just chuck him, huck him, toss him. Yeah, do that.
So
shit.
speaking of tossing somebody out of a ring, apparently it's pro wrestling term. Shit canning is when you throw somebody out of a ring.
Shut
I
the
love that.
fuck up. That's great.
That's so good.
I looked that up earlier.
Get
I was going to put it on the list,
shit-canned,
but I
bro.
didn't. But you shit can them out of the ring, like you literally like toss them out of the ring,
It's very good. It's very,
which
very
is
good.
I think is hilarious. So this was the story of how it came to be. That's my story on that one. So I think I might do another one on like the actual stories themselves.
Yeah, please do
Because
one with
it's
the
so hard
stories.
to tell. I was going to say it's hard to tell a story of just a character because they have spanned so many years of their lives. And it's crazy to think about too. You start your story as a wrestler as one person, and if you're a good one, that never changes. You are that person for the next 40 years of your life. It's crazy.
Well,
it's
I mean,
crazy
that's
to think
kind of how
about.
the rest of us live our lives.
Well, that's why I look at the documentary with Stone Cold Steve Austin. With Stone Cold, like Vince gave him so many opportunities that most people never got before they finally got the Stone Cold persona down.
Yeah, he used to be stunning Steve Austin, but he was in a different company at that point.
Yeah, and then when he was in WWE,
Did he have hair?
he did.
He did have hair. It was really weird.
Oh,
It's
I need to
really
look at
weird.
pictures of him with hair.
His blonde hair,
Yeah,
right?
it's blonde and it's long
Yeah.
and it's weird.
Oh.
But like he was trying to talk different things before they finally like we got to do something. And I remember his like nicknames are like all ice, something like that. We're trying to call him the Iceman or some
interesting.
other stuff.
And they finally found the one that stuck,
Itzy,
and they're
'cause he's
like,
the Iceman.
"This is you." Hey, Itzy, this is you for the rest of your life now.
Oh, I hate this. I hate this. I don't like this. I gotta take this picture away from me.
Oh man! So before we end it, though, I think that we should give each other professional wrestling names, like old timey. Here's your name, and then here's a nickname in quotations.
Okay, so but first, then we'd have to say what our wrestling moves would be, right?
I would love that. Zach, what is your signature maneuver?
My signature maneuver is called it's called the Chattanooga corkscrew, and it is when you grab somebody by the legs and you kind of twist them around, and then you just kind of keep twisting. You just twist them.
I love that.
And you said the Chattanooga corkscrew?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're wrestling from out of Tennessee then.
Oh, and then once you twist them,
Tennessee...
you throw them. You kind of you twist them, and then you do it like a spinning throw, and then hopefully they untwist in midair, and like their limbs splay out, and they look like a helicopter.
So that you're the Tennessee topper, because like tops, like they spin. So you're the topper. You're gonna spin people.
The Tennessee topper. That's it.
That's great. Beau, what is your signature maneuver?
The kiss of death.
Ooh.
Where I kiss you.
Oh,
and then
I
you
love
fall
this.
Over. You're mesmerized, almost like a Medusa style. I'll give you a kiss and your feathers fall over. I'll pin you.
I call you Blushing Beau.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. Oh, it's so good.
And I'm from.
Oh, I love that.
I'm from Mars. That's my place of origin.
Ooh, parts unknown. I love it. Ash, what's your signature maneuver?
I think that I would want it to be like the death roll, and I just bounce off of the ropes with my arms open like an alligator's mouth, and then I clamp onto you, and then just try to pull you down into a spin, slam you down on the ground.
So we'll call you the Ashigator.
Oh, fucking great! That's so good. And your music would be like old timey, like Louisiana, like banjo.
Zydeco.
But like creepy banjo though, like alligators coming to get your banjo.
Do I have to adopt a swamp accent? Because I'm not sure I can do that.
Let's try it out right now. I want you to test it right now.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Don't really even know.
You got this.
I'm gonna get down like a gator. Gonna turn into some meat.
100%. That's it. You got it.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
There's no improving.
I'll learn to play the banjo though for sure. I'll do that.
Yeah, it'll be great.
You walk out in the ring with a banjo on your back.
Yeah, you can hit people with banjos when the ref's not looking.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Bwong," and he's like, "What's that sound?" I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't hear nothing."
That's great.
Andrew?
I love it.
What about you, Andrew?
Mine is going to be awesome. So I first, I stunned them with just like I clap in their face real quick. So they're like, what happened? And then I'm going to turn around as fast as I can, spinning around my body to the left with my right arm extended. I'm going to spin as hard as I can and spin multiple times and slap, while at the same time moving downward, slapping, starting at their face and then their arms and their chest and then their groinal region and going all the way down to their toes. And I will slap them all the way down.
Call you the dreidel something.
What's the or like the sprinkler?
Oh. The sprinkler.
Andrew, the sprinkle tinkle.
The sprinkle tinkle. You're about to get fucking tinkled, bro.
His theme song is.
Yeah, that's it. I love it. That's perfect.
you're the tinkler, and your move is the sprinkle tinkle.
The tinkler. I don't even know what that means, but I love it.
Hide your wife, hide your kids. Here comes the tinkler.
Here comes the tinkler. I'm just like.
I'm about to get it all wet.
I feel like you need a devious mustache.
Oh yeah, for
absolutely.
sure, absolutely.
And I need like a manager that's with me who like fixes the sprinkler if ever it gets broken or something.
Maintenance man.
Well, thank you for taking us through that, Andrew. That was a very interesting story, but I had no idea about
I
the
enjoyed
origins
everything.
of professional wrestling in America.
Who's your favorite?
Pretty fun.
Who's your favorite wrestler growing up?
Who you asking?
You all.
Zach, who's your number one guy or gal?
Sting.
Ooh.
Sting is still around actually right now.
Wow.
I watched him today.
He's an AEW, right?
He's an AEW, and he's been saying for a while, like, the end's coming, guys, but he is writing his own story, and he is still wrestling. I watched him jump off of a second-story balcony a couple weeks ago onto a bunch of dudes through a table, and he is 60 years old, and he's still
that
going.
man's pushing
Good
60.
Lord.
He's over 60 now.
Ash?
My entire basis of why I like Sting is, I mean, I picked him the most in whatever the
'Cause he had the bat.
N64 wrestling game was.
Yeah, WCW versus NWO.
WCW Nitro or whatever. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I also liked King Kong Bundy.
King Kong Bundy. Yeah, King Kong Bundy was one of the stars of one of the territories. So that's call back to 20 minutes ago when I was talking about it.
Yeah, Ash, who was your favorite?
What about you, Ash? What do you like? Who? I mean, you know, I know you didn't watch, but like, who?
The Undertaker.
Who had the, like, there you go.
A classic. A good classic.
Yeah, it's just iconic.
Mhm.
Iconic.
Mhm.
But what was yours?
Oh, Shawn Michaels. Love me.
I don't know
I'm a
that.
big HBK guy. Go listen to his
The Heartbreak Kid guy.
Go listen to his theme song. It's hilarious. If I had a theme song, that would be my theme song.
He's just talking about how he's a sexy boy,
Yes,
and
that
it's so
would be
weird, and I love it.
You've been getting a girl just going, Sean.
Jesus Christ.
Such a weird- again,
I don't
Weird.
like that it's.
Go
I
ahead.
don't like that it's
Things
just
are
his
weird.
name. Like freaking. Get something a little more exciting.
The opening line is.
Oh, you're excited
I
if
think
you
I'm
listen to that.
cute, but I know I'm sexy.
I've got the looks to drive the girls wild. I've got the moves to really move them.
I send chills up.
I sent chills up and down their
Fine.
spine. I'm just a sexy boy.
Sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. Boy toy. It's a great theme song. The guitar
It's
solo.
great. It's so stupid. Bo is marking out right now.
I love Shawn
You
Michaels.
fucking Mark.
Oh.
He's a Mark for Michaels. He's a Michaels Mark.
Michael's Mark. Andrew.
For me, my I have so many favorites. It'd take me so long, honestly.
Just growing up. Shawn Michaels.
Growing up.
Shawn Michaels is still my favorite wrestler of all time. But that's gonna be
Growing up,
had
I think it was Stone Cold
merch.
Steve Austin, The Rock, and Kurt Angle. I loved all three of those guys. However,
I think you like The Rock.
Triple H, he's so good. I don't know. It's hard to choose. It's hard to choose because I spent so much time invested in all these characters. You know,
Yeah, me too. I
can't really pick my favorite.
I picked one. If I had a second, if
Mankind.
That's my
when
second
Mankind
one.
fought the Undertaker. Like
Mhm.
it's, I can't. Again, you're gonna get me on a tangent, and we can't do that. We're already over the
No.
odds.
Spock, The Rock, Doc Ock, and Hulk Hogan.
I still don't like The Rock.
Randy Savage.
Oh yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
This podcast
Red-
ending in 3 minutes.
All right, Bo, give us your best Randy Savage impression, and we're gonna
I just
then
did.
we're gonna leave.
They literally
My
just
favorite
did.
part was learning about the marks.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Andrew.
no,
Oh, yeah,
I'll
sorry,
take us
forgot
out.
about
I'll take
the-
us out.
forgot
I'll
the
take us
thing.
out.
No, forget about the favorite part stuff.
Can I take it out? Can I take it out? With
Wait, we're not taking it out
my-
yet. We need to talk about our favorite
I
things.
want to take it out.
Well,
with
I was-
Macho Man. Randy Savage impression.
Ash, were
Okay,
you gonna do
you
that?
can later. I was gonna say thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to Andrew for teaching us about the origins of professional wrestling. Let's do our honorary. What was the favorite thing we learned? I can actually start. My favorite thing was learning about the origin of jabroni. That was wonderful little tidbit of
Mhm.
information that I will cherish for the rest of my days.
Yeah, now you can use it in your regular life because
I
you
already
know
do.
it's not racist and it's just a term for someone who loses. It's great. Sure, it's derogatory, but it's not laden in racism or homophobia or anything like that.
Zach, what was the favorite thing that you learned?
My favorite thing is that they were called marks because they would literally mark them with chalk.
Oh, such a good little piece of information. Bo, what was the favorite thing that you learned?
The carny element of all of it and how they swindled people into it. I love me.
So interesting, right?
Make some money.
Andrew, what did you learn about dumping on us today?
I learned that I really loved it when Zach had all of the puzzle pieces falling in his brain. I felt it and I loved it.
Connected
He
the
was like,
dots.
wait a minute, that's where that comes from? Oh my God. It was great.
To anybody out there who's still listening, let us know your favorite part of the episode, the favorite thing that you learned, as is tradition now on this podcast, which I really enjoy.
Send an email to getdumpedonpodcast.
Why do you keep telling people to fucking email us? What year is it?
Hold on. Before you tell people to email us, let people know every Wednesday, Hump Day, Dump Day, you'll have a new episode coming out. So enjoy this Wednesday and hopefully next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that and the Wednesday after that.
Wednesdays are hump days, a day that you dump days. I don't know. Some
Oh, I
fun
love that.
jingle.
Yeah. It's a hump day, dump day.
Okay, Beau, take us out officially as Randy Savage, please, if you wish.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for listening to the Get Dump On podcast. I think I messed up the title.
God, I love
but
this.
anyway, I want you to go home, show this to your mothers. And I'm losing it really quickly. I really am.
Oh God, he's turning into Bane. He's turning into Bane.
All right, let's leave.
No.
Let's leave. Bye.
Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Beau and Andrew didn't go to college because that's the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped On an Info Dump podcast.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. You freaking jabronis.
Yeah, get out of here, you fucking jabroni.